Welcome everyone to today's deep dive. We're really thrilled to have you here with us.
Absolutely.
So I want you to start by just, imagining a highly specific, deeply unsettling scenario. Imagine for a second that you just stumbled upon absolute, undeniable, hard proof that the reality you live in is, well, it's a complete fabrication.
Like a literal illusion.
Exactly, a literal illusion. And not only is it fake, but it's a terrifying one, manipulated from the shadows by, unseen malevolent forces.
Oh, that's heavy.
Right.
Yeah.
So you walk out of your house, your heart is just pounding against your ribs, your entire worldview has just been shattered into a million pieces. And you look around, and what do you actually see?
Just everyday life.
Yeah. You see your neighbor casually watering their azaleas. You see people standing in line at a cafe, complaining about the wait for a vanilla latte. They're completely blissfully oblivious.
Right.
How would you react in that moment?
Mhm.
Would you grab them by the shoulders and try to shake them awake? Or would you just stand there frozen, feeling like you are the one who's completely losing your mind?
I mean, it is a staggering thought experiment. It really forces you to consider the extreme psychological weight of isolation.
Yeah, it really does.
Because you're describing a person trapped in this massive, unbridgeable chasm between what they perceive to be a horrifying, urgent truth and the entirely mundane reality that everyone else is just blindly participating in.
Right. And that profound, almost maddening disconnect, that exact feeling of screaming into a void, that's the launching pad for today's deep dive.
It's a wild ride.
It is. The source material we are unpacking today is an excerpt from the JRE Clips YouTube channel. We're looking at a conversation featuring filmmaker Roger Avery, where the discussion dives headfirst into the Epstein files.
Right, and they get into alleged coded emails and what the speakers refer to as Luciferian concepts and elite cabals.
Yeah, which means we need to set some very, very clear parameters before we delve into the mechanics of this conversation.
We absolutely do.
So I need to pause right here and be crystal clear with you, the listener. The sources we are unpacking today contain highly provocative, extreme, and politically charged conspiracy claims.
Yay, extreme.
We are talking about allegations of massive global elite cabals, hidden rituals, and horrific crimes. We, as your host, are absolutely not taking sides on this.
No, not at all.
We are not endorsing, validating, or promoting any of these viewpoints. Our mission today is strict, impartial reporting.
Right, we are treating this source material as a fascinating window into human psychology.
Exactly. The goal here is to understand how people interpret highly ambiguous, disturbing information. We want to map out the underlying mechanics of belief, deception, and, well, pattern recognition as they are presented in this specific conversation.
Because we're basically dissecting the architecture of a belief system.
Right.
Regardless of how extreme the claims are, the way these theories are structured, and the profound way they alter a person's behavior and perception of reality, it's an incredibly revealing look into how the human brain processes fear and information.
Okay, so let's jump into the emotional core of this source, because they start with a story that perfectly illustrates that thought experiment we opened with.
The airport story.
Yes. The conversation highlights a recent viral incident at the Atlanta airport. According to the source, there was a well-dressed, seemingly normal guy who'd essentially had a massive public meltdown.
Just out of nowhere.
Yeah. He started screaming at all the travelers rushing past him, calling them zombies and drones. And the catalyst for this breakdown, he claimed he had just read the Epstein files.
Wow.
So he is standing in one of the busiest travel hubs in the world, watching people buy neck pillows and overpriced pretzels, and he is shouting that they are acting like nothing is happening.
Right.
He explicitly compares the general public's apathy to the classic sci-fi horror movie Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Which, I mean, when you view the world through his specific lens, his reaction is entirely logical.
Wait, really? Logical.
Well, within his framework, yeah. The source material emphasizes his perspective. Think about it. We've recently lived through a global pandemic. We've had actual congressional hearings discussing the existence of aliens and massive paradigm-shifting news cycles.
Okay, fair point.
Yet in this man's eyes, those are just distractions. The source details his belief that there are far worse things happening behind closed doors, including extreme allegations of an elite class literally eating babies.
Right.
So from his vantage point, the fact that society is still functioning, that flights are taking off and people are buying coffee, it isn't just annoying, it is definitive proof of mass hypnosis.
I mean, okay, let's unpack this. I want to try and visualize what that actually feels like.
Sure.
It's almost like having a specialized, permanent virtual reality headset glued to your face.
Yeah.
In your headset, you are seeing a Godzilla-level monster actively crushing the terminal, eating passengers.
What an image.
But you look around, and everyone else is just, I don't know, complaining about their flight to Chicago being delayed by 20 minutes.
Right.
If you genuinely believe the claim presented in this video, that a small, coordinated group of about 8,500 elite individuals is actively running a sinister, fake reality, then watching someone casually read a magazine at Gate B12 wouldn't just be baffling.
No, it would be deeply traumatic.
Exactly. You would look at them and think, are you not seeing the monster?
That analogy captures the terror of the situation perfectly, and it naturally raises the most critical question of this entire theory.
Which is?
Well, it's a question the source material attempts to answer directly. If there truly is a grand design, if 8,500 people are manipulating the fabric of our society, how do they keep the public so incredibly docile?
Right. Why isn't everyone screaming?
Exactly. The cognitive dissonance of the man screaming in the airport makes sense. But what is the mechanism that keeps the rest of the airport calmly eating their pretzels in the face of alleged monsters?
Well, the source has a very specific and frankly loaded term for this method of control. They transition into the mechanics of how this illusion is maintained, and they call it the Luciferian spell.
The Luciferian spell. It's fascinating because the mechanics of how this spell supposedly operates are deeply rooted in classic folklore.
Like what kind of folklore?
The source uses traditional vampire lore as their guiding framework.
Oh, interesting.
Think about the old myths. A vampire, no matter how powerful, cannot simply break down your door and enter your home. They have to be explicitly invited in by the threshold's owner.
Right, the invitation rule.
Exactly. According to the theory discussed in the video, this elite cabal operates on an identical psychological rule. They supposedly believe they cannot just enact their dark plans in secret. They are, like, karmically or magically required to tell the public what they are doing ahead of time.
Wait, they have to tell us.
Yes, they have to extract our unconscious permission.
Okay, so they call this technique predictive programming, right? The concept is that the elites seed the truth of their crimes into our media, our blockbuster movies, our late-night television, so we are exposed to the horrors before they ever happen in the real physical world.
That's the theory.
The video provides some very pointed examples of this. They discuss legendary filmmakers like Ridley Scott and Cormac McCarthy, claiming these creators put hyper-specific, grim realities on film before the public knew about them.
Like what?
The specific example they use is the concept of bodies being dissolved in sulfuric acid inside industrial milk drums and then being shipped around the world. The claim is that by packaging this horror as entertainment, the elites are conditioning the audience to accept it.
Right, and what's fascinating here is that the source argues that comedy is an even more potent delivery system for this conditioning than dramatic film.
Comedy.
Yeah. They bring up a very specific skit from Stephen Colbert's late night show. In this routine, Colbert is holding a baby prop and playfully hands it over to a character representing Moloch.
Moloch, which is an ancient real-world deity historically associated with child sacrifice.
Exactly. And this Moloch character is waiting inside a red, cloudy furnace. The punchline revolves around the absurdity of the situation. The baby is supposedly fine, and the studio audience just erupts in laughter.
But according to the source, that laughter is the actual trap.
Yep.
The theory argues that by transforming a horrific ancient concept like child sacrifice into a digestible late-night joke, and by getting a room full of normal people to laugh at it, we become complicit in the act.
We invite the vampire in.
Right. We've seen the demon, we chuckled at the demon, and therefore we've subconsciously invited the vampire into the house.
It fundamentally re-engineers how you interact with culture. I mean, if you adopt this framework, you can never just watch a late-night comedy skit or a sci-fi thriller again.
It sounds exhausting.
It really is. Every single piece of media transforms into a hostile psychological operation. It becomes a slow, deliberate drip of desensitization designed to push your boundaries until you are entirely numb to the actual horrors unfolding in reality.
Okay, if you're listening to this and rolling your eyes thinking this is just sheer paranoia, I am right there with you. I have to push back hard on this premise.
Go for it.
Because I look at a Colbert skit, And I wonder if we are giving this supposed cabal way too much credit and giving the human brain way too little.
How do you mean?
We aren't necessarily looking at a coordinated global design by 8,500 elites to normalize demons. What we are likely looking at is a psychological phenomenon called apophenia.
Ah, apophenia, yes.
It's the human brain's natural tendency to perceive meaningful connections between entirely unrelated things. Our brains evolved to survive by finding patterns. If you hear a rustle in the bushes, your brain assumes it's a tiger.
Better safe than sorry.
Exactly. If you're wrong and it's just the wind, you lose nothing. But if you assume it's the wind and it's a tiger, you die. So we are hardwired to over-index on finding hidden threats.
That makes perfect sense.
When someone whose brain is already primed to see an elite, child-sacrificing cabal watches a late-night comedian do an edgy, weird joke, they don't just see a weird joke. Their threat detection system goes into overdrive, and they see a literal demonic ritual hiding in plain sight.
That evolutionary perspective is crucial. It perfectly encapsulates the eternal tension at the heart of all conspiracy analysis.
Right.
Are we bravely uncovering a hidden truth that everyone else is ignoring, or is our hypervigilant brain just connecting dots that were never meant to be connected in the first place?
Right. Just seeing tigers in the bushes.
But what makes this source material so compelling is that they don't just apply this hypervigilance to movies and comedy. If you can look at a late-night comedy show and see a demonic ritual, what happens when that exact same pattern-seeking brain looks at a boring, everyday corporate email?
Oh boy.
That is how the source tackles the infamous Epstein emails.
And this is where the theory gets incredibly granular and honestly where I start to get genuinely stumped. The source zeroes in on the actual written communications released in the Epstein files.
Okay.
The core argument they present is that these ultra-wealthy elites are using totally mundane, boring language as a sinister code for horrific crimes.
Right, the coded language.
For example, they highlight an email where someone discusses needing a, quote, chilled container to walk over beef jerky. They also spend a lot of time analyzing emails where billionaires are talking extensively about ordering pizza and grape soda.
I mean, on the surface, the contrast is deliberately jarring. The language is utterly nonsensical for the context of these people's lives.
It really is.
Why would an international financier need a specialized, chilled container to transport beef jerky? Why are powerful political figures having extensive email threads focused entirely on pizza?
Here's where it gets really interesting, but help me out here, because I am completely stuck on this leap of logic.
Okay, what's the lead?
I understand that it is undeniably bizarre to picture a group of high-powered billionaires organizing a pizza and grape soda party like they're 12 years old at a middle school sleepover. It is weird.
Extremely weird.
But how does a brain jump from, this is a weird food preference, to, this is glaringly obvious code for the most horrific crimes imaginable against children? It defies basic logic. Why would the most powerful people on Earth use the word pizza?
To understand that leap, you have to look at the broader ecosystem of the emails they are referencing.
Okay.
The source points to other, far less ambiguous emails that they argue validate their suspicion of the pizza code.
Like what?
For instance, they mention an email where Epstein's private island is casually compared to Damascus, carrying a heavy implication that there are ancient or buried things to explore there.
Oh, wow.
And far more concerning, they reference an incredibly disturbing email where a sender allegedly writes, "Thank you for the torture video. I enjoyed the torture video."
Jesus.
Yeah. And the video expands this beyond Epstein, claiming these practices are widespread, citing an unverified allegation about a high-level female musician in Los Angeles who allegedly sacrifices chickens daily.
Okay, so if you are the guy in the Atlanta airport, you're looking at an inbox that contains the phrase torture video right next to an email obsessing over pizza and grape soda.
Right.
And your threat detection system concludes that the pizza email cannot possibly just be about food.
Exactly. And this is where the source introduces a brilliant philosophical concept to explain why the rest of the world refuses to see the code.
I'm all ears.
They bring up an ancient Latin phrase, mundus vult decipi ergo decipietur.
Which means?
It translates roughly to, the world wants to be deceived, therefore let it be deceived.
Mm-hmm.
The argument the source makes is that when the general public looks at an email about pizza, they actively, consciously choose to believe it is just about pizza.
Because the alternative is too dark.
Yes. Not because pizza makes logical sense in the context of billionaire logistics, but because acknowledging the alternative, acknowledging the horrors behind the veil, would permanently destroy their worldview.
So it's a coping mechanism.
The deception is not just a spell cast by the elites. It is a psychological defense mechanism actively maintained by the public to protect their own sanity.
We choose the boring reality because the matrixed reality breaks our brains.
What's that?
It's easier to believe billionaires just really love grape soda.
Right.
But here's the problem with this entire theoretical debate. Words like pizza or jerky are inherently ambiguous. They can mean a million different things depending on who is reading them.
Sure.
But what happens when we strip away the ambiguity? Because the source takes this philosophy of hidden deception and forces it up against a very tangible, extremely dangerous physical chemical, complete with hard purchase orders.
Right. This is the moment the theoretical debate anchors itself to concrete evidence.
Yeah.
The video discusses a highly specific claim. Immediately after Jeffrey Epstein was indicted on serious charges in the 2000s, he ordered massive quantities of sulfuric acid to his private island.
Which is insane.
Specifically, the claim states he ordered 6 55-gallon drums of the chemical.
Which is a staggering amount of a highly corrosive substance. Now, to their credit, during the conversation, the host of the video actually paused to do a live research search using their sponsor Perplexity.
Yeah, they fact-check it live.
They want to see why someone living on a remote luxury island would suddenly need industrial quantities of sulfuric acid. And the mundane, entirely logical theory pops up immediately.
What did they find?
The research shows that sulfuric acid is a standard chemical used in the maintenance of reverse osmosis seawater desalination plants. We know for a fact that Epstein had a large water treatment facility on his island to generate fresh water from the ocean.
Okay, so immediately, Occam's razor provides a perfectly mundane industrial explanation.
Right.
An island needs fresh water, you use reverse osmosis to get it, and that machinery requires chemical maintenance. But the source material deeply wrestles with accepting this.
I don't buy it.
No, they provide technical pushback against the mundane theory. To understand their skepticism, you have to understand how reverse osmosis actually works.
Okay, hit me with the science.
It operates by utilizing immense industrial pressure to push highly saline ocean water through microscopic, delicate, semi-permeable membranes. Over time, the minerals in the salt water build up and scale the membranes, ruining them. You do need an acid to lower the pH of the water and prevent that scaling.
Right, makes sense.
However, the source notes that using pure, highly concentrated sulfuric acid directly on these systems is technically questionable because if the dosing is even slightly off, that sheer corrosive power will degrade and destroy the very delicate polyamide membranes it is supposed to be protecting.
It's like using a sledgehammer to tap in a thumbtack.
Correct.
But it's incredibly risky for the equipment.
Exactly.
And that slight technical hitch leaves the door wide open for the dark hypothetical. Because what else does sulfuric acid do?
It dissolves things.
It is a brutally strong mineral acid. It severely burns skin, it rapidly dehydrates tissue, and it chars organic material into a sludge.
It's horrific.
The horrifying implication raised by the video is that you don't order 55-gallon drums of it to clean a water filter. You order it to dissolve human bodies.
The tension in the source material plays out in real time as they debate this. You have one speaker offering a trial lawyer's perspective, suggesting you must take the plausible, mundane answer, the water treatment plant, with a grain of salt.
Right. You have to look at the boring option first.
You have to acknowledge it as a highly likely possibility without immediately jumping to the most gruesome conclusion. But the opposing pull in the conversation leans entirely into the darker interpretation, fueled by the context of the man's crimes.
Well, the host of the video leans hard into the classic duck analogy. They say, if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck.
Because of the timing, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because it's not just the physical purchase of the acid, it's the specific timing of the purchase. If we put ourselves back in the shoes of the Atlanta airport man, this is the smoking gun.
How so?
The video stresses that Epstein ordered these massive vats of flesh-melting acid immediately after getting hit with a severe sex trafficking indictment.
Think about that logically.
If you are suddenly facing massive federal legal trouble, public scrutiny, and potential life in prison, are you genuinely rushing out to ensure the pristine, long-term chemical maintenance of your reverse osmosis water filters?
Probably not your top priority.
The source argues that expecting the public to believe that requires stretching the limits of coincidence until they just snap.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it creates a fascinating standoff between Occam's razor and the concept of the dark veil.
Explain that.
Occam's razor dictates that the simplest explanation is usually the correct one. A remote island needs water, water needs treatment, treatment needs chemicals, done.
Right.
But the dark veil theory counters that this is exactly how the predictive programming and the Luciferian spell are designed to work.
Ah.
The simplest explanation is manufactured to give you a comforting, logical excuse to look away. It allows you to ignore the monster standing right in front of you because acknowledging it is too painful.
So what does this all mean for you, listening to this right now? Why should you care about the psychology of a guy screaming at travelers in an Atlanta airport, or whether a billionaire's email about beef jerky is a demonic code, or, the intricacies of how sulfuric acid interacts with the desalination plant?
It's a valid question.
You should care, because we are all currently living in an era of unprecedented, overwhelming information overload. Every single time you open your phone, you are bombarded with conflicting realities, viral conspiracy videos, leaked documents stripped of context, and algorithms designed to trigger your threat detection systems.
It's a constant barrage.
It is. Understanding how human beings construct these elaborate, impenetrable frameworks of belief, understanding how a brain can take a comedian's joke and turn it into proof of a demonic spell through epiphania, it helps us navigate our own media diets.
It really does.
It sharpens our critical thinking. When you understand the underlying mechanics of how these grand theories are built, you are far better equipped to pause and analyze the bizarre, often frightening data that inevitably crosses your own feed. You learn to question your own pattern recognition, rather than just getting swept up in the panic.
It is entirely about recognizing our own cognitive vulnerabilities. And that brings me to a final, somewhat provocative thought I want to leave you with today, building on that Latin quote from the source.
Mundus vultigispi.
Yes, the world wants to be deceived. The source material argues that we deceive ourselves because we are utterly terrified of facing a reality run by an evil 8,500-member elite cabal.
Right. We look away because the truth is too scary.
But I think we need to flip that assumption on its head and ask a much deeper question.
Okay.
What if the exact opposite is true? What if our deep cultural fascination with coded emails, Luciferian spells, and shadowy string pullers actually stems from a profound psychological desire for the world to have a clear, organized villain?
Wait, really? You're saying the conspiracy theory is the comfort blanket?
Precisely. Think about the psychological alternative. A world run by a malevolent, organized cabal is certainly terrifying, but it fundamentally implies that someone is in control.
Oh, wow.
It implies that there is a plan, a grand design, a narrative structure to history, even if it happens to be a dark one.
That makes a lot of sense.
Perhaps the real deception we crave, the lie we desperately want to believe, is the comforting illusion that someone is actually at the steering wheel of civilization.
Because the alternative is.
Because the true alternative, the idea that the world is just chaotic, highly random, inexplicably cruel, and that horrific things happen to innocent people for no grand orchestrated reason at all, is a truly unbearable reality.
Yeah.
Facing the sheer randomness of existence, the idea that the universe is indifferent might be the actual horrifying truth we are trying to avoid by building these elaborate, coded mazes of belief.
That is a staggering thought to end on. It completely flips the entire script of the source material.
It really does.
We aren't looking for monsters in the shadows because it's less scary than realizing the house is empty.
No.
We are inventing the monsters because an empty, chaotic house is the most terrifying thing of all.
Exactly.
It brings us right back to that guy screaming in the Atlanta airport. Maybe he wasn't screaming because everyone else was asleep to the grand design. Maybe he was screaming because, deep down, the idea of an uncontrollable, random world is so much harder to swallow than a world where the bad guys at least have the decency to leave clues in the movies.
It's a powerful realization.
It is definitely something to think about the next time you're waiting in line for a coffee, looking at the people around you, and wondering just what reality they are choosing to live in.